So, hello. Today I have the honor of
Hello.
interviewing Professor Aminul Karim.
Mhm.
Professor Karim is currently a dean at Independent University in Bangladesh and teaches on a variety of subjects, ranging from geopolitics to strategic management. He brings with him a unique perspective with his extensive military background, from being the Lieutenant General at the National Defense College of Bangladesh to his time as a military secretary for the President of Bangladesh. Thank you so much for joining us today, Professor Karim.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your kind words. Yeah, great.
Well,
It's pleasure. Yeah.
thank you. Well, to begin, there is currently a mass exodus of the Rohingya people from Myanmar, largely to Bangladesh. However, this isn't their first mass exodus. As a military officer who witnessed past crises with Rohingya refugees, can you describe some of your personal and professional experience?
Thank you. Mm, I call you Hana.
Yes.
That's great. Yeah, yeah. I had both field experience and staff experience of that particular area of the Chittagong Hill Tracts that is joining Myanmar, the border of Myanmar, international border, and mm, I used to check the staff work and also the field. I commanded a battalion there, and I also commanded a brigade over there for some time. And that part of the area was my area of responsibility. At that time, we had a quite border with Myanmar. I was there in when I was in command. It was in 95, 96, and at that time, some insurgent groups would, you know, spill over to Bangladesh many of the times, and we would go and ask them politely, "Well, leave our territory and go back to Myanmar or anywhere else. So you can't stay in our country. We will not tolerate any extra insurgent groups operating in our area. Not operating really. They were used to come for some training or some rest or some whatever, rest and recreation and whatever. And then the border was quiet. International border was quiet. But Exodus started a long time back in 1978. There was an office of UNHCR at Cox's Bazar, which I used to visit, and there were some remnants of the Rohingyas there, although many of them were repatriated back in 78, 79. But some stayed back, and some got assimilated with the local population. They got married with the local people. You know, they are all Muslims, so you have no problem in intermarriage between between a Muslim and a Muslim. Yeah, and some made some false ID cards or passport and moved to Myanmar. Sorry, moved to Saudi Arabia or to mostly to Malaysia or Indonesia. They settled there, and some stayed back and got assimilated with the local population. And we used to go around, and mostly this, as I said, some of the insurgent groups of different varieties, they used to come and creep into our territory and would say, "Get out of this area, otherwise we will shoot you down." They used to politely leave the place. Yeah. And that was
Mm.
a real-time experience, tough experience for me. And at the army headquarters level, I used to oversee the operations as a staff in the military operations directorate. We had a problem with the that is called Shanti Bahini, that was insurgent group that was being trained, and they were provided sanctuary in India, and they used to operate from India. So we used to have some encounter with them, the Shanti Bahini, local insurgent group of the local tribals in Bandarban, Khagrachori area, or Chittagong Hill Tracts overall. And we used to have fights with them, but they were being trained, groomed, and given sanctuary by the Indians, arms, and so on and so forth. And then in '96, yeah, around that time, mid '90s, we signed a peace treaty, a ceasefire treaty, and after that, it has come into a sort of lull period. But still, our military is there, our civil forces are there, our civil administration is there, and it's running fine now. It's quiet now, more or less, except that we have a lot of Rohingya. 1.1 million people are sheltered in cramped camps, and A lot of foreign agencies are working there. And I visited after my retirement from the Rotary Club of Dhaka Central. I took the winter clothes for them and visited the camps and saw their plight. It was very, very deplorable, crammed in small little houses, men, women, and children together, not high, no, not health, a lot of health problems, education problem for the children, and a lot of young ladies were carrying war babies, and by this time 60,000 are already born. They are war babies. You understand that they were raped by the Myanmar military during that carnage or genocide in 2017, 2016, 2015, 1978, 1991. But 78 one was better handled. There was a bilateral agreement, and they agreed to take them back. That was fine. But it was a long-term plan for them, and they have a master plan for that. They want to get the Rohingyas out of Myanmar once for all because they're Muslims. That's it, in plain and simple terms.
So you've talked about how there have been multiple incidents with the Rohingya refugees coming into Bangladesh, but do you think this instance right now in the present day is different from the past exoduses?
This is, I think, the grand finale of the exodus that started in 78. 700,000 together in one go in August 2017, and I would say this is the grand finale, and there may be another exodus as well, because still about 400,000 to 600,000 Rohingyas are still back in Myanmar in Rakhine State, and there's a possibility the military might push them again back to Bangladesh, and this is going to add fuel to the fire, add more liabilities to us, and we are feeding them, we are giving them. Of course, UNHCR is doing a great job. Other NGOs, international NGOs are doing a great job. UN is doing a great job. I think the Americans are doing a great job. The Canadians are doing a great job. EU is doing a great job. They are helping us to give them food, medicine, shelter, helping us in a big way. They're giving us money, shelter, expertise, and they have a lot of their offices over there. But I think there's a big difference between what happened in 2017 and the other exodus. That was, as I said, this is a grand finale of their grand plan of sending them all out of Myanmar.
How do you think it'll progress now that you've called it the grand finale? What do you expect to happen moving forward?
Actually, this is a very difficult question to answer. Look, I'm a military man. Yeah.
Yes.
we have the habit of, I can't speak diplomatically, and there's a vacuum. They are stranded in Bangladesh. Our economy is not that strong. We are feeding, or giving shelter to 1.1 million refugees, and the greatest problem is with the crimes coming up. The women are being trafficked, children are being trafficked, and the war babies, those are born 60,000 in one go, and many more are in the offing. There will be huge humanitarian problem. I don't know. The UN was very active. Is very active, I tell you. Turkey was very active to support, help us. Myanmar is very active to help us. Sorry, not Myanmar, Malaysia, I was meaning that. But they are very adamant. There was a bilateral agreement reached between Bangladesh and Myanmar, and China mediated that. And the second one, China was a party to it, and UN has become involved in that also. But I don't think they will take them back, because these people don't want to go back. They were so tortured so mercilessly. Women were raped, in hundreds and thousands. And in one go on 25th August of 2017, during that massacre time, one report from that MF, what is that? That NGO from France, that Science Without Border, something like that. They said that we have seen about 7,000-8,000 people are being killed in one go. just in one go. And maybe, the rape is used as a weapon of war. They want to change the ethnography of the state. There should be no Muslims there. That's very sad, very, very sad in this 21st century. People are only condemning it. Yeah.
For sure. The crisis within Rohingya is definitely an extreme one. And you've kind of described some of the horrific war crimes and acts that have been coming and currently happening. And well, in your book, Genocide and Geopolitics of the Rohingya Crisis, you argue that this conflict is an act of genocide and it kind of accompanies everything you've been talking about already. But could you explain to the audience what you mean by this often controversial term and why specifically the term genocide applies here?
Yeah, you are very right. Rightly pointed out, genocide is a controversial term. I totally agree. But then, well, the Rwanda court, the Yugoslavia court, the Cambodian court, court by international court established by the UN, they have all said those are genocide. Sudanese court, they all said these are genocide. If something is done with the intention of wiping out the part of the population, whole or the part of the population, the intent is very clear here. In genocide, the term intention is a big gray area to determine the intention. But then the ICJ, International Court of Justice, in their interim promulgation, they have asked the Myanmar to stop further activities on genocide in Bangladesh. They have used the term genocide in their promulgation actually, and report to UN about the preventive measures taken, that they are not tortured anymore. Actually, I'm sure you are aware of the Genocide Convention of the UN. Six conditions, and 4 or 5 of the conditions have been all done by the Myanmar military security forces, because they are acting, going for acts of violence committed against a group, and that group is Rohingya, and they intend to destroy their group in whole or in part. Actually, more Rohingyas are living outside Rohingya than in Rakhine today. They are left with another 500,000, and we are already hosting 1.1 million. Some are sheltered in Malaysia, some are sheltered in Saudi Arabia, some have gone to Indonesia as well, and they are also they have the intention to prevent birth within the group, and that's why they are going for large scale en masse, raping the women, so that they lose their ethnography, their family roots, and so on and so forth. And then this violence is taking place against the ethnic nationals. Rohingyas are an ethnic national, they're a racial national, they're a religious national group. And once something is directed against a group and you want to wipe them out totally or partly, I think 80% of the job is done. President Thian said once that, sorry, we will not allow the Muslims to stay in Malaysia. We must make it free of Muslim people. They call them Bengalis, They don't want to call them Myanmaris. No, they don't want to. You know about the 1982 Citizenship Act, where Rohingyas have been excluded. They are not considered as a citizen of Myanmar or Burma, but they are staying there for last centuries, few centuries. They have fought they participated in the Japan-British War, in the Second World War, and they have been doing business, and they are there settling there. And that time there was no separate Myanmar; it was all Indian British Empire, part of the British Empire, larger empire. And as I said, Rohingya, they constituted a protected group, protected Muslim group. and a protected ethnic group and a protected racial group. And Christoph, a famous journalist, he said, I saw genocide in slow motion in Myanmar. He could penetrate the Myanmar security forces' eyes and ears, and he saw that I have saw a slow genocide going on inside the northern Rakhine state, and he called it a slow death. So they have a grand plan to deport all of them to Bangladesh and get rid of all the Muslims. It's basically, I think, they see it that by nature the Muslims they breed faster than other religions probably, and they said the way they are increasing their population, someday will come they will overtake our population. So we must get rid of them. That's a very fantastic thesis, and they're applying that. And as I said, International Court of Justice has ordered the Myanmar to stop this crime and report to UN headquarters every 6 months what measures you are taking to prevent the recurrence of this pogrom, or I would say this heinous genocide. You see, ethnic cleansing is also, if you have the intention of driving them out, ethnic cleansing also constitutes genocide. This was given by this verdict was given by ICJ in case of Rwanda. In case of Rwanda, in case of Yugoslavia, only 8,000 people were killed. Boys and men were killed, and women were segregated from the men and women. Men and women were segregated, and 8,000 killed, and the entire population is gone. Muslim population, Srebrenica, and that general and that president were tried later on. So if you take the examples from there, then Myanmar case is much more grave and much more dangerous. And genocide is the most gravest, not the gravest act of ethnic cleansing or crimes against humanity. Even sexual violence can be can be seen taken as part of genocide if with the intention of changing the ethnography of the people. The mothers will give birth to the children whose father is somebody else, a non-Muslim or a Burmese or something like that. They are strangulated. Their houses are were burnt. Hundreds and thousands were chased, killed. Muslim men, women were separated, and they were thoroughly raped in presence of their children, and they suffer from huge trauma. Trauma is a big curse for the people who are now in Bangladesh, and management of trauma has become a big challenge for us in the crammed camps. They don't want to go back. There was date and time given that they will be taken back by the Myanmaris, and none of these refugees, refugee word is not being used by the Bangladesh, neither by Bangladesh nor by Myanmar. These people were immigrants, so to say, illegal immigrants, something like that, and they refused to go. None of them says, no, we can't go unless you ensure our rights and security, our protection, our citizenship. We will not go back. They are going to kill us again, once again. So this is a very clear case. This is supported by UN Secretary General in his statement. UN statement supports that. The International Court of Justice in case of Rwanda, in case of Yugoslavia, in case of Cambodia, it supports that. It's a much higher, the Myanmar case is a much higher magnitude, much higher gravity. I'll just quote you a book. I think, that's a very interesting book I was just reading. Daniel Ferrieston, his book is Genocide and Social Practice. Now he says that in case of the Rohingyas, there are 6 stages of genocide, and 50 stages have been completed. Only 6 stages left. And I'll take it quote from his book or cite from his book. He says number one is stigmatization and dehumanization, harassment, violence and terror, isolation and segregation, and systematic weakening and mass annihilation. The sixth stage, removal of the victim group from the collective history. They will be taken out from the history of Myanmar. That there was a class or a population called Rohingya in Myanmar. So that is what is his comment about Rohingya. Again, Yang Hee Lee, the special reporter on human rights in Myanmar, says the following 9 October 2016 and 25 August 2017 genocide, that act of repression or killing or murder or raping and looting and burning and killing the children in presence of the mother, raping the mother in presence of the children, carries the hallmarks of a complete genocide. Absolutely. UN fact-finding mission in September 2018 said that army leaders should be handed over to the ICC, who are responsible for this, and United Nations Security Council should impose sanctions and embargoes on Myanmar. But it can't be done because of the big powers are involved here. So that is how it is going.
Yeah.
So in conclusion, I would say it's a clear case of very severe genocide, very clean case of genocide, much severe than in Rwanda or in Yugoslavia. I'm not very sure about the Cambodian case, but at least much severe than these two cases. Yeah, I'm very clear about that, and I think I'm trying to make that point in my book.
Yeah, like you said, it's gone to such extreme stages, and as you quoted from the book, it is right before the sixth stage. And we've talked a little bit about kind of the UN and the ICG's role within the crisis, and about how they've been, for example, asking every 6 months to Myanmar what measures he might have taken to mitigate the current situation. But obviously, the extremeness of the crisis hasn't dwindled any much more. But this is a point you kind of touch upon in your book as well, about how the UN is, in short, ineffective in addressing the Rohingya crisis. But why do you believe that they're so ineffective in addressing such a big crime against humanity, or this act of genocide, when it should be condemned internationally strongly?
Yeah, even the Secretary General has tried his best and has done a good job. He visited this Bangladesh and those camps. The UN Human Rights Council chief, they visited these places. UNHCR chief, they visited these spots, and they are providing us good help. The matter was taken in the United Nations Security Council. I think once or twice, the Chinese and the Russians vetoed. If UN force could be, created under mandate 7, even I think that's mandate 7. We can create a UN force and create a safe zone for them inside the Rakhine state. These people go and take shelter under the UN, like we are operating in Africa. Our forces are operating under UN banner, under UN mandate in Africa, in different countries of Africa. But we are so helpless, we can't help ourselves with the forces. But country like Bangladesh would not like to go for a war. We are basically a peace-loving country. We have a strong military, no doubt about that. We have a strong navy. We have a strong air force. We have some, of course, I would say, a credible deterrence. we can fight. And there are many scholars who say what Myanmar has done to Bangladesh is an act of war. I was talking to a professor from a Canadian university the other day. He said that once they have, sent so many people to your refugees, stateless people, they are stateless people because they don't have the citizenship in Myanmar nor in Bangladesh. So they are stateless. Nobody wants them. So this is an act of war. And Bangladesh has a right to fight it back militarily. But well, we are going slow. We would not like to open a frontier for war in that at this point in time. Again, there is a corona problem, pandemic. That pandemic is crippling everything, and everybody is fighting that. So I would tend to think the Rohingya should start their own liberation war because Myanmar is now volatile. The civilian population is extremely against the military junta. They are forming a different military to fight the present very strong military, and the Kachins and the Chins and other tribes are uniting, and the Chinese have closed the border with Myanmar. Indians have closed the border with Myanmar, and because they are thinking there are a lot of refugees flowing out of Myanmar and come to India or to China. Even Thailand is very worried about it. So we have to also close the border. But then how long we are going to bear this burden? How long? There's a limit to our patience, our strength. We follow friendship to all and malice to none, and we don't want to go for a war out. But then we would definitely increase our deterrence value. And I would tend to think the Rohingyas might start their liberation war. Now is the time. Military junta is creating all the problem. And military rule is never welcome in these days.
Is aligned with what you talked about in your book about how this crisis can only be resolved through military action. And even if Bangladesh doesn't necessarily want to get involved militarily, you think that the Rohingya refugees should take some course of military action to resolve this current genocide.
Correct. Yeah.
Right.
It is their problem, and they should go back to their country of origin. They should go back to the roots. Why should you shelter them? How long? There's a limit to it. The international community has a responsibility to bring an end to this problem. And no, I'm not saying directly that Bangladesh should start a war. No, I'm not. I probably I never meant that. To start with, I would go for UN Security Council mandated force, the UN force, to take care of it. If that is not possible, that is probably not possible. China and Russia will not allow that to happen. Even India is taking side of the Myanmar. So that UN force is not possible. I was just wondering if it was possible to form an OIC military force, Organization of Islamic Countries, like Turkey, Malaysia, Indonesia, Bangladesh. These 4 or 5 countries coming together. Like African Union has a military force. They operate there in African different countries. Whenever there is a problem in Africa, they form a force and they operate. And they, of course, the UN forces come in later on. But I know many cases where African AU forces, African Union forces are operating. And that could be another approach. And Bangladesh on its own would not like to open a war front with Myanmar, and there's no end to that. But maybe if they impose it on us, we'll fight it back. If the Myanmaris are imposing on us, if they send back another 400,000, 400 to 400,000 and up to 500,000 Rohingyas are still pushed towards Bangladesh forcibly, then probably we'll have no choice but to resist that. As I said, this is itself is an act of war committed by the security forces of Myanmar. And the horrifying part is even the monks are involved here. Monks are saying, no, no more Muslims should be around. Myanmar is for the Buddhist only. Muslims should not stay here. That's not on. Look at America. You have all kinds of people there. America is called a melting pot. You have people from all kinds of religion, ethnic group, race, color, creed, and name anything. In this 21st century, you can't talk like that. But I'm never saying that we are going forward. No, I never meant that. Probably I interviewed some professor. They made some comment on that, but I did not give my personal comment on that. But well, I will not rule out the possibility of our military taking action on that someday. I'll not rule out that. No, no, no. Then why to have a military if you can't protect our own border? The territorial integrity is the most important. Preservation of the territorial integrity is the most important component of a military function of a military. And we have a reasonably strong military today, well trained, well groomed, well trained, and our arms are not, I would say, reasonably modern arms we have now. We have submarines now. So, well, we have to create more deterrence so that Myanmar is, in 1978, because of the deterrence, they took back the refugees. I'm telling you this is the inside story. The inside story was that our then president threatened the Myanmaris, if you don't take them back, I'm going to start fighting you out. I'll send my military against you. And they took them back and they signed the bilateral treaty. But now they think they have now become very strong. I visited Myanmar in 2003 and I've been to their military installations. Oh, they are increasing their numbers by leaps and bounds. Modern aircraft coming from Russia, coming from China, coming from North Korea. And they have got submarines from India. They have got MiG-29s, Su-30, Russian series, and so on and so forth. And well, they are strong. They are thinking, military gives you a lot of confidence, and they are utilizing that. They thought Bangladesh is weak now, so we have to build the deterrence part of it, so that the credible deterrence. Deterrence has no meaning unless the opponent believe that yes, we are strong and we have the will to fight it out. We have to express our willingness. Unless you express your will to fight, that's not credible. Probably we have to express that now, loud and clear. Probably they will come that we have to do that. But hopefully, UN should do something about it. ASEAN can do a lot on that. The UN Human Rights Commission chief, I think I was just reading the newspaper I think today or yesterday, she has called upon the ASEAN system to start the political process of negotiation with the military junta of Myanmar and sort it out, because civil war is in the offing. She is saying the civil war is going to start, all-out civil war is going to start in Myanmar. So ASEAN should start the dialogue process, the political process to mitigate the problem. So these are some of the options in my own way. Yeah.
Right. So you mentioned a couple of different routes that this could possibly go through to mitigate the situation. One being military action, possibly by the AU or neighboring countries, and two, perhaps intervention from Asian countries to prevent a civil war from breaking out. What do you think of the effectiveness of other sanctions or negotiations by other countries, or perhaps by the UN? Do you think they'd be effective, or how might you see it panning out for the situation?
If you ask me to answer in one word, should I answer just in one word? It is China who can help us. China is friendly both to Myanmar and to Bangladesh, and most of the military procurement done by Myanmar and Bangladesh, those are coming from China, mostly 80% of them. And China is already doing this diplomacy, and they are doing it. They are trying to negotiate, but it's not visible as yet. They are working behind the door. Diplomacy is working. Their foreign minister came to Bangladesh just the other day. He went back to Myanmar and he's trying to settle the scores. But the point is, if they have a state policy, the Myanmar has the state policy of rooting out all the all the Rohingyas, Muslims from Myanmar, then you can't do anything. It started in 78. It continues till date. And we don't know what is forthcoming. And I'm apprehending that another 400,000 to 500,000 people will be pushed if the civil war starts throughout the country. And they have already declared the formation of an army, this united government, civil government, something like that. The supporters of Aung San Suu Kyi.
Right.
So, civil war will be disastrous. It will have a lot of implications for regional security and security for the Myanmar. And the countries like China, India, Bangladesh, Thailand, Malaysia are directly, Laos will be directly affected. This is a very serious case. And I must say that the UN Human Rights Council chairman just said that please start the political dialogue. I'm sure good sense will prevail with the Chinese and the Russians as well. Why to have an unnecessary civil war? The Americans will take advantage of this. I have a hunch for that. Americans may take an advantage of this. Why not? When Americans try to bring democracy here, if the Americans would try to bring democracy over here, but then it fizzled out, isn't it? The military junta has again come back, and people say that China had support for the military junta to take over.
Right. So you've talked about kind of, I guess for now, it's a bit of a more low-key negotiations, whether with China or with other countries, with Myanmar, to kind of change the state of the Rohingya people within Myanmar. But as of right now, although the UN has kind of denounced what is happening in Myanmar and such, there isn't a ton of international focus on this crisis. It still largely remains untalked about, especially, for instance, within the United States, and a lot of people aren't even aware that this is happening. What do you think, or do you think something could change if there was an increased international awareness about what is going on within Myanmar and to the Rohingya people? And do you think that might prompt the United States to also get involved, or perhaps other nations that are still currently on the fence about how to properly get involved?
Yeah, the proper venue is United Nations always. We would always look for UN mandated resolutions or force or whatever, or any sort of negotiations. They can appoint a sort of ambassador at large to negotiate with it. Like Kofi Annan Commission worked very well. And do you know on 25th August 2017, on 24th August, Kofi Annan report was submitted, and on 25th, the genocide was launched by the Myanmar security forces. It was all pre-planned, very well systematic, and pre-planned things. We understand military operations very well. They were building up the military forces for months together, and the moment it was ready, they launched the operation on 25th August. Yeah, I think negotiations should continue in the sidelines of the UN. China, I'm sure, will be forthcoming. China is a good friend of Bangladesh, very good friend of Bangladesh. I was trained in China. I've studied in China. I've taught in China. I've taught in the Chinese Foreign Affairs University in Beijing. I have good friends in China, good number of friends in China, but it's a question of national interest of China. They have to keep the Myanmar happy because they have their pipelines, oil pipelines, and the gas pipelines, and the deep sea port, and a lot of resources in Myanmar. You can't imagine. You go and visit, you can buy a lot of jewelries, jades and sapphire and stones, and it's so rich all underneath. So they're developing, coming up, and that's why they're buying so many equipment, armaments, aircraft, and so on and so forth. But I think diplomacy should be geared up. The world attention should be geared up. The focus has now a little diverted about the Rohingya issue has, I would say is not in that focus as it should have been, as it was there initially. So this program is, I commend this program very much. You're going to build awareness to the people. Look, this is what is happening. 8,000 people were killed in Srebrenica, and the whole world was moved. The NATO forces were deployed against Kosovo and Bosnia, and they bombarded. And here, millions of people have been uprooted, and thousands of people have been killed, butchered, and hundreds and thousands of women have been raped, and hundreds of children have been killed, maimed, and leftover people they are in the concentration camp. They don't have even there's a problem in intermarriage. A Muslim man want to marry another woman, they create a lot of problem for that. They don't allow this intermarriage. They allow it maybe ultimately, but they are no political entity as such. So this is a complex problem, and if they have a state policy like that will uproot the Rohingyas once for all. But then, well, China can call shots, Russia can call shots, Americans also should come forward and put pressure, do diplomacy, convince the Chinese. We are also trying to convince the Chinese, and Chinese are coming. But you have to put pressure. Unless you put enough pressure, UN should put pressure on them. YC should put pressure on them. Well, YC has a lot of clout. In the sense, the energy is controlled by the Middle East countries. So YC can put pressure on them. ASEAN can put pressure on them. Where ASEAN, if they said, okay, you get out from ASEAN, that will be a good pressure on the Myanmar. And they have absolutely abandoned democracy. The military junta has taken over, and that goes against the spirit of ASEAN Charter, as I understand. I worked in Malaysia. I was a professor in the University of Malaya in Kuala Lumpur. So I used to follow the ASEAN activities in Myanmar, and they didn't listen. But when the Americans came with the US aid program, President Obama visited, Secretary Hillary visited, and the election was conducted, and that lady came to power, and has been totally abandoned, lopsided, and there is a topsy-turvy situation now. Democracy has been sacrificed at the altar of military rule.
Hopefully, as you've talked about, there can be some increased international pressure if we do bring awareness to this issue, even with the United States, so that other international nations and actors can kind of play a role in putting increased pressure on Myanmar to not let this be the status quo, because it is horrifying and it cannot go on. But yes, thank you so much for joining us today and for talking so in depth about this genocide and the situation and kind of the complexity of all the issues that surround it internationally, and also your own experiences, as it provided a definitively new view for the audience. Yes, do you have any final remarks or such that you would want to tell, especially to the people that follow this program, in concerns to the advocacy and awareness that we can create, or what impact they might be able to have for the situation?
Yeah, as I said, I commend your initiative of having this program and building the awareness. Many are not probably aware of the ferocity and the gravity of the situation. And think of the children are denied education, healthcare. What is going to happen to them? They will grow up without education. There is a responsibility from the international community. So you are doing a fantastic job, and increase this awareness program. And I have really liked it so much. And I was going through those essays essay papers, very nicely written, short, succinct, but fantastic. They know the problem very well. Your students are very brilliant, American students. They study a lot. I'm very impressed. But last, I would say that UN should be more active. America should be more active. Chinese and Russians and the Americans should sit together, or maybe there can be a committee formed in the UN to take care of this problem. But again, this problem of veto is there. All problems lie in the Security Council resolutions. But beyond that, we should work, make the diplomacy work, and we will work also as well. We'll cooperate with any reasonable, rational decision taken by the international community. And some of the countries are doing a great job for us, like Canada is doing a great job for us. America is doing a great job, like they put sanctions on some of the top generals. America has put sanctions on 4 top generals, including the commander-in-chief. He said that he once said we cannot take back the Rohingya in no way. He just made a public statement in 2017. There is no way we'll take back the Rohingyas. And he's now the boss of everything in Myanmar. He's calling the shots. So the journalists should come forward, the press should come forward, the Al Jazeera should come forward, CNN should come forward, BBC should come forward, Harvard University should come forward, Yale University should come forward, UN should coordinate all these activities and involve OIC, ASEAN, and Middle Eastern countries. And I would tend to think Bangladesh, China, Myanmar, we can sit together and we can find a way out, hopefully, some way out of this impasse. And my message is, this is an humanitarian issue. And we as human beings, all of us are responsible for this. We are not doing much about it. We should do much more than, we are doing enough, but we should do much more than what we are doing now. It is another, if we are handling the coronavirus pandemic, we should also be able to handle this refugee crisis. Thank you, Hana. It's fantastic. It was nice. You are very methodical in your approach, and you ask very tough questions. I hope I could satisfy you.
No, thank you so much for joining us here today. It's been an absolute pleasure and honor to interview with you. I think I've learned so much, and I'm sure everyone who watches this interview will learn so much.
My pleasure. And best of luck.